Chrysler was once a symbol of American pride, standing shoulder to shoulder with General Motors and Ford as part of Detroit's legendary Big Three. But today, it's a ghost of its former self, barely hanging on with a fraction of the models it once produced, and overshadowed by rivals that adapted faster and stronger. The story of Chrysler's fall isn't just about cars, it's about bold risks, near-death bankruptcies, government bailouts, foreign takeovers, and missed opportunities that shaped the entire U.S. auto industry. In the early years, Chrysler was a powerhouse of innovation. Founded in 1925 by Walter Chrysler, the company rose quickly by offering affordable vehicles packed with features that competitors weren't delivering. While GM and Ford battled for dominance, Chrysler carved out a strong identity, becoming known for engineering brilliance. By the 1950s and 60s, Chrysler was building some of America's most iconic muscle cars: Dodge Chargers, Plymouth Barracudas, and Chrysler 300s. These weren't just vehicles, they were cultural landmarks, roaring across highways and drag strips, capturing the spirit of speed and power. Chrysler wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. But the cracks began to show in the 1970s. As the oil crisis hit America, the big gas-guzzling cars that Chrysler built so proudly suddenly became a liability. Consumers wanted smaller, fuel-efficient models, and Japanese automakers like Toyota and Honda stepped into the spotlight. Chrysler, slow to adapt, found itself losing ground. Its lineup was bloated, outdated, and unprepared for a new era. By the late 70s, Chrysler was hemorrhaging money so badly that it faced complete collapse. That's when the company made its first dramatic comeback. Enter Lee Iacocca, the man who had been fired from Ford but came back with a vengeance at Chrysler. Iacocca secured a controversial bailout from the U.S. government in 1979, saving the company from bankruptcy. But he didn't stop there. He launched the legendary K-Car platform and, more importantly, the minivan. The Dodge Caravan and Plymouth Voyager revolutionized the American family car market. Chrysler was back in the game, turning losses into profits, and for a while, it seemed unstoppable again. Yet success came with new challenges. By the 1990s, Chrysler was once again slipping. Competitors were refining their production systems, slashing costs, and building cars with better quality and reliability. Chrysler, meanwhile, was leaning heavily on trucks, Jeeps, and minivans. Profitable, yes, but dangerously narrow. Then came one of the boldest moves in automotive history, the 1998 merger with Daimler-Benz. It was sold as a merger of equals, but in reality, it was anything but equal. Daimler treated Chrysler like a struggling stepchild, and the cultures clashed from the start. Instead of building strength, the merger drained Chrysler's identity and morale. By the mid-2000s, Chrysler was collapsing again. Sales were weak, its cars lagged behind in design and quality, and the Daimler experiment had failed. In 2007, Daimler dumped Chrysler, selling it off to Cerberus Capital Management, a private equity firm that hoped to turn it around but lacked the automotive expertise to pull it off. Then came the global financial crisis of 2008, and Chrysler was hit harder than almost anyone. Sales plummeted, factories closed, and bankruptcy loomed once again. The financial crash of 2008 was the knockout punch Chrysler couldn't dodge. The company filed for bankruptcy in 2009, marking the second time in just 3 decades it had to be saved. But this time, it wasn't just the U.S. government stepping in, it was a foreign automaker. Fiat, the struggling Italian carmaker, took control of Chrysler in a deal orchestrated by the Obama administration. To many, it was shocking. Chrysler, once the pride of Detroit, was now under the wing of a European parent company. But at that moment, it was the only lifeline left. Under Fiat, Chrysler saw a temporary rebound. The brand leaned hard on Jeep and Ram, which became the company's crown jewels. Jeep in particular exploded in global popularity, becoming one of the most valuable automotive brands on Earth. Ram trucks also carved out a strong position, stealing market share from Ford and GM. For a brief window, it looked like Chrysler might finally have found stability. But the Chrysler brand itself? It was fading fast. While Jeep and Ram thrived, Chrysler's own lineup shrank to almost nothing. Iconic nameplates like the Chrysler 200 and the Dodge Dart were discontinued. Dodge was reduced to muscle cars and SUVs. Plymouth had already died years before. Bit by bit, Chrysler was cannibalizing itself, letting go of the very variety that once made it powerful. By the late 2010s, Chrysler's survival was resting almost entirely on two vehicles, the Chrysler 300 sedan and the Pacifica minivan. Compared to its rivals, this was a pitiful lineup for a company that was once part of the Big Three. Fiat Chrysler Automobiles, or FCA, kept squeezing profits out of trucks and SUVs, but it failed to invest enough in the future. While Ford and GM were betting big on electric vehicles and advanced technology, FCA lagged years behind. The company relied on old platforms, recycled designs, and aging engines. Profitable in the short term, yes, but strategically, it left Chrysler vulnerable. Then came the biggest twist of all, the merger with PSA Group, the French automaker behind Peugeot and Citroën. In 2021, Chrysler and Fiat officially became part of Stellantis, a massive global giant with 14 brands under its umbrella. For Chrysler, this was both a chance and a curse. Stellantis promised investments in electrification and hinted at reviving Chrysler with new EV models. But the brand had been reduced to such a small shadow that many wondered if it was even worth saving. While Jeep, Ram, and Dodge had clear identities and strong sales, Chrysler was an afterthought, clinging to relevance with just a minivan and a sedan in its catalog. And this raises the uncomfortable question: how did a company that once stood proudly beside GM and Ford fall to the point where its very existence is in doubt? Chrysler's story isn't just one of bad luck. It's a cycle of short-term survival at the cost of long-term strategy, a pattern of innovation followed by complacency, and a history of relying on bailouts and foreign rescues instead of building sustainable strength. Today, Chrysler exists more as a nameplate than a powerhouse. In Stellantis' massive portfolio of brands, it sits quietly in the background, overshadowed by Jeep's global dominance, Ram's aggressive truck sales, and Dodge's cult-like following in the muscle car world. Chrysler's showroom presence is almost embarrassing compared to its past. It offers just two models, the Pacifica minivan and the aging Chrysler 300. That's it. For a company that once competed head-to-head with Ford and GM across every major segment, this collapse in product variety is staggering. Yet Stellantis insists that Chrysler still has a future. Executives have teased all-electric concept cars, showing off sleek designs meant to rebrand Chrysler as a forward-looking EV company. The Airflow concept, for instance, grabbed attention as a possible glimpse into Chrysler's next chapter. But concepts don't pay the bills, production cars do. And year after year, Chrysler's actual lineup remains stagnant, forcing industry watchers to ask: is this brand really being revived, or is it just being kept alive on paper until Stellantis decides what to do with it? Meanwhile, the market has shifted dramatically. American buyers are flocking to electric vehicles, hybrids, and crossovers, while Chrysler has virtually no presence in these segments. Competitors like Ford are investing billions into EV plants, GM is rolling out Ultium battery platforms, and even startups like Rivian and Lucid are capturing headlines. Chrysler, by contrast, is sitting on the sidelines, relying on a minivan and a sedan that are years past their prime. It feels like déjà vu, just like in the 1970s when the company was too slow to adapt to changing consumer demands. Chrysler once again risks being left behind in a new era of mobility. But here's the twist: Chrysler's name still carries weight. The legacy of its muscle cars, the revolution of the minivan, the bold risks of leaders like Iacocca, all of that history keeps Chrysler relevant in the hearts of many Americans. That's why Stellantis is hesitant to kill it outright. There's still brand equity. There's still recognition. And there's still the possibility that with the right EV strategy, Chrysler could reinvent itself as a tech-driven, electrified brand for a new generation. The question is whether that reinvention will come in time, or whether Chrysler will join Pontiac, Oldsmobile, and Plymouth in the graveyard of once great American automakers. The stakes couldn't be higher, because if Chrysler disappears, it won't just be the end of a brand, it will be the final chapter of what was once Detroit's Big Three. If Chrysler does manage a comeback, it will have to be nothing short of radical. Stellantis has hinted that by 2025, Chrysler will debut its first fully electric vehicle, with a plan to go all-electric by 2028. On paper, that sounds ambitious, but the clock is ticking fast. Tesla already dominates the EV market, Ford's F-150 Lightning and Mustang Mach-E are grabbing attention, and GM is preparing a flood of electrified Chevrolets, Cadillacs, and Buicks. Chrysler can't afford to show up late again. It would need to hit the market with something bold, fresh, and disruptive. But there's another possible scenario. Stellantis may simply use Chrysler as a placeholder brand until it quietly fades away. After all, Jeep and Ram are already global juggernauts, and Dodge has a strong niche identity. Chrysler, in comparison, is fragile, with no clear purpose in the Stellantis family. If resources get tight, executives may choose to double down on the stronger brands while letting Chrysler disappear without much fanfare. It wouldn't be the first time an American icon was quietly buried. Just look at Oldsmobile, once GM's oldest brand, which was discontinued in 2004. There's also the chance that Chrysler gets absorbed into another Stellantis division. Imagine Chrysler being repositioned as a premium EV spin-off of Jeep, or rebranded into something that complements Ram's truck dominance. This wouldn't save Chrysler in its traditional sense, but it would allow the name to survive in some new form. The question is whether consumers would embrace it, or simply see it as another watered-down attempt at revival. What's undeniable is that Chrysler's story is more than just business. It's symbolic of the larger struggles of American manufacturing: bold innovation followed by stagnation, quick profits overshadowing long-term vision, and survival depending too often on bailouts and mergers. For many, Chrysler's slow decline represents the fading of Detroit's golden age, when American cars didn't just sell, they inspired. And yet, history shows that Chrysler has cheated death before, twice. It rose from the ashes with the K-car. It redefined family transport with the minivan. It captured imaginations with muscle cars that still have fan bases today. The brand has resilience baked into its DNA. But the auto industry of the 2020s isn't forgiving. There won't be another Iacocca to pull off a miracle, and the challenges of electrification, autonomy, and global competition are fiercer than anything Chrysler faced in the past. This really is Chrysler's final chance. The automotive world is standing at a crossroads, and every brand is making its move toward electrification. If Chrysler succeeds, it could rewrite its legacy as the ultimate comeback story, an American icon reborn in the EV age. Imagine Chrysler launching a sleek, affordable electric sedan that competes with Tesla's Model 3, or an electrified Pacifica that once again revolutionizes family vehicles. If Stellantis backs it with real investment, Chrysler could rise from irrelevance to leadership in just a few short years, proving that even the weakest player in the Big Three can still shock the world. But if Chrysler fails this time, there won't be another bailout, no government rescue, no foreign savior waiting in the wings. The auto industry has moved on, and brands disappear faster than ever when they can't keep up. Consumers have plenty of choices. Why wait for Chrysler when Ford, GM, Tesla, Hyundai, and others are flooding the market with advanced EVs? One misstep, one underwhelming launch, could seal Chrysler's fate permanently. And the stakes extend far beyond just a nameplate. Chrysler's survival, or collapse, will send a signal to the entire industry about what happens when an automaker relies too heavily on its past instead of investing in its future. If Chrysler disappears, it will be more than just the end of a company. It will be the closing chapter in the saga of Detroit's Big Three, leaving behind only Ford and GM to carry the torch of American automotive heritage. The irony is that Chrysler still has one advantage: its history of reinvention. Time and again, it's been written off as finished, only to surprise the world with something new. Whether it was the minivan in the 1980s or Jeep's global explosion in the 2010s, Chrysler has proven that innovation can save it, if it arrives at the right moment. The question now is whether Stellantis will give Chrysler the resources and freedom to make that kind of bold leap again, or whether it will simply let the brand wither away in silence. Stellantis has laid out its master plan with big promises: an $35 billion investment in electrification and software development, dozens of new EV models across its brands, and a pledge to make Chrysler fully electric by 2028. On paper, it looks bold. The Chrysler Airflow concept, unveiled with sleek styling and advanced tech features, was meant to showcase this new direction. It was clean, modern, futuristic, the kind of vehicle that could reintroduce Chrysler to an audience that barely remembers its past. But here's the catch: concepts are easy, production is hard. And Chrysler doesn't just need a pretty prototype, it needs vehicles in showrooms, fast. That's the gap Chrysler has to close. Stellantis is already rolling out EVs in Europe through Peugeot, Citroën, and Fiat, while Dodge is developing the electric Charger Daytona, and Ram is preparing an all-electric 1500. Jeep too is electrifying its lineup with plug-in hybrids and fully electric SUVs. All of these brands are ahead of Chrysler in Stellantis' pecking order. So the pressing question becomes: will Chrysler truly get the spotlight it's been promised, or will it end up starved of resources while the stronger brands carry the load? There's also a challenge of identity. What exactly is Chrysler supposed to be in this new world? Dodge owns performance. Jeep owns adventure. Ram owns trucks. But Chrysler? Is it luxury? Is it family-oriented? Is it affordable mainstream? Right now, it's none of those clearly. Without a sharp identity, even the best EVs might struggle to capture buyers. After all, people don't just buy cars for transportation, they buy into the story of the brand. Chrysler's story is blurry, and that makes its revival even harder. And yet, that same uncertainty opens a door. Chrysler could be molded into almost anything. It could become Stellantis' dedicated EV brand for North America, a direct rival to Tesla, Rivian, and even Ford's electric division. It could reinvent itself as the tech-forward face of Stellantis, leveraging futuristic interiors, autonomous driving features, and connectivity to stand apart from the traditional muscle of Dodge or ruggedness of Jeep. In a way, Chrysler's weakness, its lack of current identity, might also be its greatest opportunity if Stellantis has the courage to define it boldly. If Stellantis does bet big, Chrysler could emerge as the dark horse of the EV revolution. Imagine a future where Chrysler becomes the sleek, futuristic face of American electrification, an automaker that finally reclaims its place alongside Ford and GM, not with brute force muscle cars or rugged trucks, but with smart, stylish EVs that appeal to families, commuters, and tech-savvy drivers alike. The Pacifica could evolve into a fully electric family hub, loaded with autonomous driving features, while a reborn Chrysler 300 could transform into a luxury EV sedan to challenge Tesla and Mercedes. Suddenly, Chrysler wouldn't just be surviving, it would be leading. But if Stellantis hesitates, the opposite outcome is just as likely. Without bold investment, Chrysler risks fading quietly into irrelevance, overshadowed by its own siblings. Jeep will dominate the SUV market, Ram will thrive in trucks, Dodge will carry performance into the electric age, and Chrysler will sit in the corner with nothing to show. Consumers may not even notice when the lineup shrinks from 2 vehicles to 1, and finally to none. It wouldn't be a dramatic collapse, but a slow, silent disappearance, until one day the Chrysler badge is gone and only the history books remember it as part of the Big Three. The irony is that Chrysler's fate is not in the hands of customers anymore. It's in the hands of Stellantis executives. Consumers can't buy what doesn't exist. If Stellantis launches powerful EVs under the Chrysler brand, people will give it a chance. But if Stellantis starves it of funding and funnels resources elsewhere, the brand will die no matter how much legacy or loyalty it once had. This makes Chrysler's story one of the most suspenseful in the auto industry today. A brand with a legendary past, teetering on the edge of either revival or extinction, and the world watching to see which way it falls. And so, Chrysler's story stands at a razor's edge, caught between its legendary past and an uncertain future. Once a titan of the American auto industry, now reduced to just a handful of models, Chrysler has been written off more than once. Yet history shows this brand has a strange way of defying the odds. The next few years will determine whether Chrysler rises as an electrified pioneer under Stellantis, or quietly joins Pontiac, Oldsmobile, and Plymouth in the graveyard of forgotten American icons. What do you think? Will Chrysler make a triumphant comeback in the EV era, or is this the end of the line for one of Detroit's Big Three? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that like button, share this video with fellow car enthusiasts, and subscribe for more deep dives into the biggest stories shaping the auto industry. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.